FridayNightOhio.com for another week of From the Press Box, Stark County Edition. I'm Chris Beaven.
I'm Chris Easterling.
We're going to talk about some of the big games ahead this weekend, but first off, let's take a look back at last Thursday through Saturday, where we got a real idea on some of the top teams in the league and maybe the Federal League not being as tough as we thought it was.
Not at all. I mean, you look at the 3-5 record, 3 of those losses, they're big 3 in Hoover, Glen Oak, and McKinley. And 2 of them were blowouts. I mean, Hoover and Glen Oak actually got destroyed, for lack of a better term, by Louisville and Massillon. So the league's really got to kind of pick itself up by the bootstraps now and try to get back on the winning way.
Yeah, I mean, to back up your point, at one point Massillon and Louisville were beating Glen Oak and Hoover 69-9 was the combined score into the fourth quarter when each Hoover and Glen Oak each got late scores. The McKinley game, obviously they had many opportunities to win that game, but gave it away with way too many turnovers. So it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back from that this week. And that leads us into our first game we're going to talk about, and that's McKinley at Lake, a big bounce-back game for the Bulldogs.
Absolutely. It might not be a good week to be a blue streak because you know McKinley's going to feel like they let 2-0 get away, a 2-0 start get away by the way they turned the football over. They made dumb mistakes, the dumb turnovers. And that, especially that defense is going to be pretty fired up trying to, and so guys like Ryan Christensen and everybody up there at Lake, it might be a difficult week for them.
The thing is, though, Lake itself also coming off a tough loss against Hudson. They look good in their opening win, and now they're 1-1. They're at home. Every time they play McKinley at home, that's a huge game for the community. So they're going to have a big crowd. So as angry as McKinley may be, I think Lake will be equally fired up. And it'll be interesting to see how they handle a quarterback like Ryan Christensen. Obviously, he's not at the level of Miller that they saw last week with Wayne, but he still can do a lot of things running and throwing the football. And McKinley needs to be disciplined in handling that. Another big game that is ahead this week is Louisville and Hoover. Louisville and Hoban at Louisville. Last year, Louisville really won that game big against Hoban. Now it's the return game at Louisville.
Hoban, always a solid program, always a physical program. They're going to have a good running game. They're going to have good defense. They're going to be a smart football team. This is going to be a good test for Louisville going into the NBC season because obviously they're going to be on a high coming off the Hoover win. They've looked very good in their 2 wins so far. But Hoban's beat Walsh last week, so they're no slouch either. They've
gotten 2 good wins, Hoban. They also beat Garfield on the opening night on Thursday. What will be interesting to see is how mentally and emotionally up Louisville can be. They've had the big game last week. NBC play starts next week, but they know that Hoban's a state semifinalist last year, just like Hoover, so they can't afford that letdown. But these are high school kids; you never know. It'll be interesting to see, though, how they come back from that. And if you see a similar performance from Bob Swigert, who was out of this world last week, and probably one of the defining performances of the season. But you saw a pretty good one too from some of Massillon's players.
Absolutely, you get used to the Robert Partridge to Devin Smith show here because. That could go down as one of the best quarterback to receiver combinations in the county, and not just the county, but the whole state this year. And they could really set some records between those two by already gelling the way they have so far through 2 games.
Be interesting to see with Massillon too. Another game we haven't talked about. They're going on the road finally. They're going to go up to Stow and see what those guys can do up there and on the grass.
It should be interesting, but I think this team has the type of ability and athleticism that grass, artificial turf. I mean, most of these kids probably grew up playing on grass. I mean, in their backyards and everything. So it shouldn't be too much of an adjustment, but more it should be minimal for them because you got Stow, Firestone, and Garfield coming up here in a row. Glen Oak was kind of their first half hurdle to get over. They know they have week 6 St. Ignatius looming down the road, but it's just building up to that and maintaining the role they've on so far.
Massillon, Louisville looking to keep momentum this week. Other teams looking to get it back. It should be an interesting week, and we'll talk about it next week when we return for another installment of From the Press Box, Stark County Edition. For FridayNightOhio.com, I'm Chris Beaven.
I'm Chris Easterling.